What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Josh here, Mid-Georgia Lawn Specialist. In my very first video, I said that I wanted this to be mainly a lawn care channel, but I also wanted to incorporate some of the mechanical aspect of owning all this equipment. You know, things like maintenance and, you know, just general stuff. Nothing too major. Well, this, we'll get into what I'm pointing at here in a second, but this kind of fell into my lap. I wound up buying a mower, and like I said, I know this is only my second video, but I wasn't intending on jumping into the mechanical portion, not at least this deep in my second video. But like I said, this kind of fell in my lap. I picked up a walk-behind mower. I couldn't pass the deal up. It was too sweet. I know it needed engine work. I knew that going into the deal. But I picked up this walk-behind for $150. Okay? $150. Even if I was to go out and buy a brand new motor for $500 or $600, I would still be in the mower for less than $1,000, and a walk behind, you know, is, you know, a used one is $1,500 or more. So anyway, let's check it out. So it is a Husqvarna. It is a 32-inch cut, which some of you might be saying, you know, why would you even waste your time on a 32-inch cut? I mean, that's tiny. And while this is true, a 32-inch cut is really small. Next year, I want to try to pick up some small yards. You know, those cookie cutter neighborhoods with the teeny tiny yards. Right now, I've got a Gravely zero turn 48-inch cut, and which that reminds me, I want to make a video, an equipment video, just to kind of show you what I use on a daily basis and what I already have. But anyway, I couldn't pass this deal up. It was too sweet, and it was too cheap, even with the engine issues. But anyway, this is the mower, and I want to kind of walk you guys through what I've already done. When I did this. When I pulled the motor off of it, this is just a couple of nights ago, I wanted to record that. I wanted to get that on video and kind of, you know, put it in the whole video. But anyway, I couldn't really get a lot of footage because I had my kids out here with me. And if any of you watching have kids, you know, it's almost impossible to do several things at one time. You know, I had to work for a couple minutes. And then make sure they wasn't tearing anything up, and then come back and work for a couple minutes, and then go, you know. So anyway, so I'm going to walk you through what I did real quick the other night. Jacked the mower up, got it up on my Harbor Freight jack stands. Just kidding, they're not Harbor Freight, they're Duralast, baby. Got the mower up on the jack stands. Taking the motor off was really, really simple. Like I said, this is an older walk-behind. It's a belt drive. It's not a hydrostatic, so some of this may not pertain to some of the newer walk-behind mowers. But anyway, these 4 bolts right here, took those 4 bolts out. This hole right here is where the crankshaft goes. On the bottom side, and I don't know if you can see down there because it's kind of dark, but there's a couple of pulleys and some other little kind of L bracket deals. These little L brackets right here. I'm gonna see if I can get one out of here. These little L bracket deals, they bolt to the bottom of the frame like this. And basically what those are kind of like, I guess you would call them like a belt guide or something like that. But anyway, those 2 pulleys were stacked on top of each other. The small pulley was on top, and this larger pulley was on the bottom. The smaller pulley actually drives the transmission, and that larger pulley drives the blades. So there's one bolt holds the whole thing in. Snatch that bolt out, pull the pulleys off, or got the belts off, pulled the pulleys off, and like I said, these 4 bolts right here, throttle cable, fuel line, and that was pretty much it. It was pretty straightforward. Like I said, I wanted to get in, you know, on video and kind of roll it into the whole deal, but it really didn't take me, even with my kids out here and having to stop every couple of minutes to see what they were doing, it really didn't take me more than about 30, maybe 40 minutes at the most. So, you know, even though I didn't get it on video, it wouldn't have made for a good video, because it just, you know, it was super simple, super straightforward. So anyway, we got the motor off, and I've got it over here on my table. I've got it torn down pretty far. I've pretty much got it torn all the way down. But I did record some footage earlier today of me tearing it down and going through the whole thing. I'm going to throw that on time lapse just so you guys can kind of see, you know, kind of what all went into it. But anyway, I'm going to throw that time lapse footage up, and we'll be back with you here in 1 second. Alright guys, so we've got it torn down. I didn't get, well, the only thing I didn't get on, well, sorry, I have the camera pointing down pretty far. The only thing that I didn't really get was me pulling this side cover off. And there's nothing to it really. It's just there's several bolts that kind of go around the outside. This side cover right here. There's several bolts that go around the outside. Once you get the motor off the frame, really the only thing you have sticking out of this side cover right here is the snout, or whatever you want to call it, on the crankshaft right here. So you pull these bolts out, and you kind of have to work the side cover, from side to side and top to bottom. You just kind of work it off. It comes off pretty easy. But once we got that, I just pretty much went through and tore everything down. One thing that I do want to kind of touch on, when it comes to maintenance on these engines, the general stuff, I'm trying to surround here. The general stuff, oil, oil filter, air filter, fuel filter, those things are, kind of somewhat of common knowledge, I guess. If anybody owns a lawnmower, they know they need to change the oil and the filter, and they know they need to change the air filter. So I don't really want to talk a whole lot about those things because, like I said, it's somewhat of a common knowledge. But one thing that I do want to touch on, and when I was tearing this Kohler down, I noticed these cooling fins that are on the cylinder head and the block itself. And this is not really that bad, but like all this dirt and stuff that's caked in here, it prevents this cylinder and the cylinder head from cooling efficiently like it's supposed to. One thing that you run into, yeah, you can see a lot of it right there. I mean, that dirt is just like caked. I mean, it's like, let me see if I can pull this out. It's stuck up in the fins so far, and it's just caked so much. It's like it's almost like plaster. But anyway, what happens is these fins help this cylinder and this cylinder head cool. So while the engine's running, the flywheel is on this side, and I've actually got the flywheel for it right here. So these fins right here on the flywheel, while this engine's running, this fin kind of acts like a fan, and it blows around inside it blows air around inside the shroud. And there's a cover that kind of goes right here, and there's a cover that goes right here, and kind of wraps around here on the cylinder head. But anyway, these fins promote cooling, and when you clog these fins up, it just starts to run hot. Now, it's not going to run hot to the point to where it'll melt down or really cause serious damage, but what it will do is it will cause abnormal wear inside the cylinder. Now, this particular engine has got kind of a rough spot right in here. I don't know if you can see that on camera. There's a little bit of discoloration there, but it's really not too bad. I'm gonna run a hone through it and just put some cross hatches back in the cylinder. And the cross hatches, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it with this camera because this is not really the best camera in the world as far as the definition goes, but the cross hatching in the cylinder is basically like little veins for oil flow. It almost makes like a film, inside the cylinder. So it's really important. But anyway, getting back to my point, when you plug these cooling fins up and you start to get hot spots in the cylinder, then that's when the wear starts occurring, and the cylinder starts to wear real wonky, and I don't even know if that's a real word, but you get what I'm saying. So anyway, to prove my point, this is one of the things that you kind of want to pay attention to. Once you get a lot of hours on a motor, you're using it out in the field, and you know, like I said, everybody knows to change the oil filter, air filter, but cleaning these cooling fins, you know, I mean, you don't have to do it every 100 hours or even every 200 hours, but every 400, every 500 hours, you know, and you don't have to tear the motor down to do this. You can take the blower housing off. You can take you can take these little covers off and expose these cooling fins. Just take a water hose to it, you know. I mean, anything really, you know, just to kind of, you know, clean this crud out of here. But so one thing that I'm kind of concerned with here is this crankshaft. A crankshaft for this motor is like $300. So I really don't want to have to do that, but I think this is going to be okay. And I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there is a kind of a discoloration there in the center. The reason that looks that way is because the main reason is this engine was knocking. And here's the connecting rod and the piston, and you can see all the scoring in here inside the connecting rod and the main cap. You can see there's a lot of damage in there. This main cap actually come loose. The bolts backed out and the main cap come loose, and that's where the knock was coming from, and that's why this is so beat up. Now the rod itself is aluminum, and the crank is really hard steel. So the rod is going to take a dump before the crank does. Now that doesn't mean that damage cannot be done to the crank. It just means that the rod is going to go before the crank does. This particular situation, I know the guy that I bought this from, and I know that he only ran the motor for maybe 2 minutes. He said that the knock started real faint and then it kind of progressed into a louder knock, but he told me he only ran it for maybe 2 minutes from the time he heard the noise, and you know, progressively it got worse and worse. He said it maybe only ran 2 minutes, which is why I think we can save the crank. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to I've got some let me see, I've got it right here. I've got some 1000 grit and 1500 grit sandpaper. So what I'm going to do is cut that sandpaper into strips, which is, you know, almost as wide as this journal right here. And that's what this area right here is called, where the connecting rod bolts to. It's called the journal. I'm going to cut some strips of sandpaper that are about as wide as this journal, and I'm going to polish the crap out of this. There's really not, I'm dragging my fingernail across this journal here, there's really not any real bad, maybe kind of over towards this side, there's one good gouge right there, but nothing is really grabbing my fingernail. It's just a little bit of discoloration. So I'm going to sand the crap out of that. The rod is toast. I'm going to have to order another rod, which they're like $80. Not a huge deal, but I'm going to sand the crap out of this journal right here, and I'm going to mic it. Now some people might watch this video and they say, well, you're not doing this the right way, you know, you don't have the right tools and blah blah blah. And I know that. I know that the mic that I'm going to use, I call it a mic, but it's basically just a set of dial calipers. I know that that's not the right tool to do this job with. I know you need an actual micrometer that's made for measuring what I'm measuring right here. So I know I'm not using the right tool, but I feel like this crank is in good enough shape where I just kind of want to check it, if that makes any sense. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to polish the crap out of it, and then I'm going to take that dial caliper, and I'm going to measure the roundness in probably 10 to 15 degree increments. I'm just going to kind of work my way around the journal after I polish it. I'm going to work my way around the journal. Every measurement that I take, I'm going to write it down. So once I've made a complete revolution of this journal in, like I said, 10 to 15 degree increments, I can write all that down. And once I make it all the way around, I'll look at all the numbers, and if any of the measurements are more than, let's say, more than a thousandth difference, which seems like it would be, but it's probably not, because this is a perfectly machined surface to begin with. So if any measurements are more than a thousandth apart, then this crank, I could go ahead and slap it back together, but it probably wouldn't make it for more than maybe a season, maybe 2 seasons at the most, and it would start knocking again, because the roundness of this journal is not going to be right. So the rod is not going to mate to the crank right, if that makes any sense. So if it's screwed up, I get maybe a season, maybe 2 seasons out of it, and eventually it'll start knocking again. If it's within spec, if it's, like I said, if it's a thousandth or so or less difference all the way around, I'm good to go. I know I can put a rod in there, and this motor will run until I decide that I need to get rid of it. One more thing I'm going to do. This cylinder actually looks pretty good. Like I said, we've got a weird spot right here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but it's just kind of odd. There is some cross hatching still down in the bottom of the cylinder. I think I said that already, but I'm just going to get a hone, run the hone through there, just to try to put, just kind of freshen up the cross hatches. The cylinder head is good. There's nothing wrong with it. The combustion chamber here looks good. I mean, there's a lot of, carbon and junk on it, but you can clean that up with a wire wheel. No issues there. The piston is fine. There's really no wear on this piston that really worries me. We've got some, I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there is a little wear on the skirt down here on the bottom, which is really not a huge deal, and the wear is very minimal. I was actually expecting to see a lot more wear than this on the piston and in the cylinder, just simply because of the age of the mower. But and there's some more of that carbon, which is not a huge deal. You clean that up with a wire wheel, and it'll be good as new. The wrist pin, there's absolutely no slop in the wrist pin, which this left to right motion is not a big deal. I'm more so focusing on up and down, but there's no slop there. So I know the piston's good. We're getting a new rod. Clean this crank up. Check the roundness of this journal. The cam is good, the lifters are good, which this is another thing that I want to talk about here. These lifters are beefy. I mean, look at that. This is a 13 horse engine off of a lawnmower. These lifters look like they come out of a small block Chevrolet. I mean, they are beef. So, anyway, the lifter's good, cam's good, everything's good except for the rod. And like I said, this little area on the crank right here. But I think we're going to be okay with this. So, we're going to clean this up and throw the gauge on it, see what we got. And hopefully we will be ordering some parts very soon. I'm going to cut this video off here because I know you guys don't want to see me sit here and polish on this thing. It'd be very boring. But I think we're going to be okay with this deal. I don't, I don't see any reason why this motor is not going to run unless that crank is just torched, and it doesn't appear to be. So I think we're in the clear. After everything's said and done, as long as providing that the crank is good, I'll have maybe $150 in parts in it. So, and then I'm not really considering my labor. I probably should, but I'm not. The whole ordeal is going to wind up costing me less than $500, which would be killer if that's the case. But like I said, I mean the mower itself is super solid. So hopefully, best case scenario, like I said, I'll be in it for less than $500, and it'll be a really good mower for me to make some money with. It's got some brand spanking new front tires. Let's see what else. Got a new fuel filter, huh? Yeah. So this should be a pretty good one. So I'm going to get to work on this thing, and we're going to see if we can order some parts. But for now, I'm going to chop the video off and get some work done. So until next time, y'all take it easy.